The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, and this episode is Questions of the Force. Our wonderful listeners have questions, and we will try to have answers. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok. I love trying to answer, but really it's just me thinking aloud. And you all have some great questions today.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to dive into this. We are in full Star Wars celebration fever. It is coming so soon, so we want to get these questions out. We're sneaking in some Kenobi ones because soon the television show will have the answers, and that will be great. As always, we want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. We are staying in Kenobi fever mode for our recommendation. We're recommending Brotherhood by Mike Chen. It is a Kenobi and Anakin adventure at the dawn of the Clone Wars. If you haven't checked it out yet and you want to, you can download this free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for this free audio book. You can listen to Brotherhood, and then you can listen to our discussion all about the big ideas and the fun Star Wars adventure. All right, Ken, are you ready for some questions?
I'm absolutely ready. Here we go.
Excellent. Our first two are from Twitter. Our second from our patrons on Patreon. We go first to Twitter and Paul Kreischer. Paul says, with Natalie Portman starring in Thor, Love and Thunder soon, any shot for a small cameo in Kenobi? What are you thinking as Kenobi gets ever closer, as we hear all these interviews from the people involved, the Ewan McGregor Hayden prequel Love Fest tour that they've been on? Does your mind turn to Natalie Portman?
It does. I've been a fan of Natalie Portman for so long, so I absolutely can't wait to see Thor: Love and Thunder. But the question is, any shot for a small cameo in Kenobi? There's always a chance. There's always hope, especially in Star Wars. I just don't think that's going to happen, but I really do think we're going to get some mentions, and I really think that's an important thing. I think you have said this, so I don't want to take the words out of your mouth, Joseph, but I think one of the big criticisms of Rise of Skywalker that we might have personally here at ForceCenter is, hey, where's Padme? Don't forget Padme. Little bit of an important character in Star Wars. So just the mention of her will suffice right now. It's the question of down the line, getting her back in the Star Wars vibe. There was talk, I think we've talked about it before here, of she was going to be at one of the conventions, but I think she was pregnant at the time and couldn't make the trip or something like that. So I don't think she's opposed. It would be fun. A flashback, especially when they shot the show. Maybe it's a flashback cameo surprise, and it's Padme lifting weights because she might have been getting ready for Thor at the time. She's looking great there, hitting that jib. So that's overall. I want any mention will count as a cameo for me.
There's a ton of great thoughts there, Ken, and a great visual of, Natalie Portman's going to be in Kenobi, but she needs to be de-aged and digitally de-gunned. She can't quite have that big of biceps. There's a lot going on with special effects these days. Anyway, I love how much people have been excited about Natalie Portman's, return to Thor: Love and Thunder, obviously in those first two Thor movies, and then not being as involved. So then returning in this big, exciting, prominent way to the MCU, I can really see why people's minds go to this is similar. She was involved with a big pop culture genre, franchise, and then left and then came back. So could it happen with Star Wars as well? Totally get that. I think for me, from everything that I've ever heard Natalie Portman say in interviews, I don't think it is about franchise or blockbuster being no-goes necessarily of but what's the story? What's the character? What's my schedule? What's the weight? What's the meaning? Is the role good? That kind of thing. So I think it's totally possible that she would appear in some way, I think that, in a flashback, or a vision, a fantasy of Vader's. There's that great Mike Chen story in the Empire Strikes Back from a certain point of view where Vader is sort of fantasizing about he's still very powerful. He's still on the dark side and dominates and controls, but he's not scarred, and Padme is still with him. Like this, bonkers fantasy. It would be amazing to see, Natalie Portman in a little fantasy scene like that. I don't know. I mean, if I had to bet, if I had to put money, I'd probably say no. I think maybe something would have bubbled out if she actually filmed something. But I think for me, I go to what you're saying is more about the presence of the character. As much as I would love to see a newly shot scene of Natalie Portman as Padme, even if it's a flashback or a vision, I think the more important thing to me is that her presence is felt, that she's spoken about in this story. Rise of Skywalker did such a great job of kind of being a tribute to and an honor to all of the big players of the Skywalker saga. That was one of my criticisms. I felt like, there should have been some way to give a nod toward Padme. I would have really liked that as a fan. But in the Kenobi show, when Anakin's love for her curdled into a need to possess her, a fear of losing her, to the point where he did things in order to keep her that she would never, ever ask him or want him to do, that not she, I guess, but rather Anakin's feelings about her so central to his fall. How could that not be part of it? And then, as we've highlighted before, the fact that Padme's last words to Obi-Wan while he's holding her child is there's still good in him, right? How can we not have that acknowledged? I would be surprised if that was not alluded to in some way. So I think that Padme is going to have a presence in the show. I hope Padme is going to have a presence in the show. And that is ultimately more important to me than did Natalie Portman and her her de-emphasized digital guns, arm muscles, physically, shoot something new. As cool as it would be, I'm more concerned about the presence of the character Padme.
Yeah, right there with you on that. And I think we're in an era now. The legacy of Leia is always going to be there, and it's always going to be up for wonderful exploration on what that character means to different generations, and will continue to mean. That's the power of Leia. I definitely think E.K. Johnson's novels, Love of the Clone Wars, different generations, the love of Padme is not subtle out there. There's so many fans, but I would love to see that explored a little bit more, even say a docuseries or the power of Padme, the legacy of Padme. I really want to know more and more about her effect on the generation of fans that discovered her first, and really explore that. And so that leads back to what you and I are talking about of Natalie Portman. Sure, I'd love that. Love her to show on up. Drinking some blue protein milk. Sorry, we're making the weight lift. I want Natalie's guns right now. I'm hitting in the gym today, trying to be like Natalie. You know what I mean? But that aside, you're right. It's the character on the live action stage, the big screen stage, whatever. I want to see the character mentioned, explored, celebrated by the other characters in Star Wars. I'll start there, and we'll build out from that.
Yeah, and I think as other people have, I think rightly pointed out, Padme's her legacy is important, not just in the real world, but to the characters. And I think the Kenobi show is not the last shot at having Padme, a presence of Padme be really felt, and perhaps even a flashback that Natalie Portman, chooses to do. I think is on the table for me for Ahsoka, right? We just had this article about, is Hayden in it or not? Or that was one of the things discussed in Vanity Fair is Hayden in the Ahsoka show or not? It is a question mark officially right now. But knowing that, Ahsoka is going on a journey where she is maybe trying to reconcile everything that happened, that she had a personal relationship to Padme that means something to her that isn't just about Anakin, that she might be interacting with Luke since they're perfecting the CGI there. And if we ever do get kind of that campfire scene where Ahsoka spills to Luke what he needs to know about his father, he might want to know about his mom too. Yeah, absolutely. And if he doesn't want to know, you better ask Luke. I'm going to be there to wag my finger. Make sure you ask. Yeah, I had a mother. Maybe Luke just doesn't know that's how things work.
He doesn't. Hey, Obi-Wan didn't teach him everything there. He didn't have time.
Obi-Wan, why didn't you tell me how babies are made? Yeah, a little bit of joking. Don't want to be too jokey about the serious subject of Padme and Natalie Portman returning. It would be great. Any other thoughts before we move on?
It would be great. I hope we're kind of wrong. We didn't put down hard, predictions here. Yes or no. We both kind of think maybe no as far as the period. I hope we're wrong.
I would be thrilled to be wrong. I look forward to it. So we're going to move on from a lot of great Natalie Portman and Padme discussion to just Owen Town. We got 2 great Owen questions, so I figured why not? We're going to take one from Twitter, then we'll take a quick break, and then we will continue our Owen talk. But first, we're going to Tony Poirier, and Tony says, after watching the trailer for Kenobi, I'm now wondering just what and how much does Owen know about Anakin, Obi-Wan, Padme at all? He seems pretty anti-Obi-Wan for someone who thinks his stepbrother he barely knew got killed because of someone else he doesn't know at all. Thanks. This, I think, is an ongoing question of exactly what Owen's knowledge level is. It is certainly implied by New Hope that he has some opinions on Luke's father. It's pretty clear, I think, in some of the Marvel comics that that he knows the basic story. I was looking up. There's some other quotes that are from a foreign produced web series that I'd never heard of before that came up from Force Awakens. That was sort of like a look at the original trilogy through Luke's eyes. That's got some quotes from Owen. So I think the general canon has been that Owen does kind of know the story, but I think there's still kind of room to play with, the classic question, what did Owen know and when did he know it? How do you feel about just that part of it? What is Owen's knowledge level?
Number one, truly, we might really get this answer. I'm excited. And hearing you even pitch this question, Joseph, I'm like, oh man, we might just know. And that is fun for me as someone who's found himself an Owen fan, which is great, but like I never spent a lot of time thinking about Uncle Owen. As the last few months, I spent a lot of time thinking about Uncle Owen and what he knows. I think, here's what I say, Jess. I think he knows almost everything. Maybe not the Darth Vader of it all. Mm-hmm. Maybe not. Maybe that's a big thing, and we've already heard some stuff about that. Who has that knowledge going into the show? But I think he knows a ton because kind of why wouldn't you? Are you just going to be like, a Jedi's here. We got a kid now. All right, let's do it. Let's protect the legacy of Shmi. Something you and I have talked about a lot, and we think is important. Let's continue that. Anakin was in it. Is that I think he and Beru know everything because that's why it's so important, and that's why they're so protective, and that's why he's so grumpy about it, and that's why we'll talk more about that in the second half of the show. But I think that's where I go. Knows a lot.
Yeah, I think he knows. By A New Hope, I think he knows pretty much the big story. I think we're getting new things fleshed out. There was that quote in the Kathleen Kennedy Vanity Fair one-on-one interview about what Obi-Wan thinks happened at the point of that the show begins. The show's going to come out, and we're going to get those answers. But I do kind of like just Revenge of the Sith era. Obi-Wan drops Luke off. I think there'd be some questions. Mm-hmm. And I think to me, it feels like if they stay true to kind of some of the stuff that's in the comics that Obi-Wan would have just been honest of like, he made some really bad choices. He became really dangerous and I had to stop him, and Luke needs someone to look over him. Right. And and then we get into if Owen knows that much, if Obi-Wan was just honest and said that much, right? And it maybe it's later information for Owen that, Obi-Wan didn't kill him. He's still alive and he's this monster terrorizing the galaxy. Great. That only makes me double down on keeping Luke down on the farm if Owen gets that part of the story later. But let's dive into the second part of Tony's question of really like, why does Owen feel as much anger toward Obi-Wan as he does, since he didn't have a long relationship with Anakin? He doesn't know Obi-Wan. Why would he be so anti-Obi-Wan? Where do you go with that?
This might be where I think they did have a sit-down dinner, maybe. Oh, come on over. Beru will make some Ronto. We get some blue milk. And maybe Obi-Wan's honest. Maybe he tells the story. And maybe it's like, so you did this then. So you did this. Maybe there's some thoughts on that of what happened. What happened from the time he left here when me and Beru were just dating into now? Like what happened? And if Kenobi had a part in that, and if he is understandably protective of Luke, again, go into this Shmi connection, which is something I think you've been right to point out a lot, Joseph, that I'm really behind you on, and really it's a thing we love here at ForceCenter of don't forget her in this equation, and as she relates to Beru and Owen.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real important person to them, and it's an important person in Star Wars. So if anything, if all that around that, and we've got we got Shmi's legacy here. We're protecting Shmi's legacy. What did you do? I think that can start a lot of, dare we say, misunderstandings between Owen and Kenobi.
Yeah, I think that's really what it's about. I think that his opinion about Anakin, and for me, it isn't about like, yeah, he didn't know him very long, but he knew that he existed, right? He lived with that for a long time. So I think it is one of those tip of the iceberg storytelling where you try to put yourself in Owen's shoes, where, you know, whatever happened to Owen's real mom, something happened there. And then his dad, Klieg, frees and marries this wonderful woman, Shmi, and they live together happily for many years with the knowledge that her son ran off to have some wild adventure instead of staying here and staying with family. And then this guy, this fancy Jedi with all his powers, comes buzzing in and saves his mom, in quotation marks, tries to save his mom too late. So I think you can imagine Owen simmering, like, the kid never should have left. He went off chasing some fantasy adventure out in the galaxy, trying to solve other people's problems instead of staying here and protecting his mom and being with his mom. And I think there's almost got to be some pain and resentment to Anakin choosing to leave to begin with when he was a kid. And then the brief time he meets him, he doesn't just meet Anakin, he meets Padme, and they are this couple. And I think from Owen's perspective of like, stay here, settle down. Why do you got to make everybody else's problems? And, you know, it is a little fast, but it does line up with what Obi-Wan talks about in A New Hope, that here Anakin is at his mom's grave, and this Obi-Wan Kenobi calls, and Anakin's just got to go running. And I think from Owen's perspective is like, well, you shouldn't have left to begin with. You protect your family. 26 people died trying to save Shmi. 30 of us went out. 4 of us came back. My dad lost his leg. That's what you do. You protect the people you love. And instead, you got this nice woman that you seem to love, Padme. She seems like a great person. And you both just go running off when this Obi-Wan Kenobi, whoever the hell he is, says. So Owen's got all these like ideas like that. And then a couple years later, here comes Obi-Wan going, Anakin did rush off and it didn't turn out at all good. And could you raise this son that you're, of course, going to love because it's Shmi's grandson? Yeah. So I think, final comment. I think I don't think it's about personally knowing Obi-Wan. I think it's that Obi-Wan is a symbol of that larger galaxy that to Owen is pointlessly dangerous, that people choose to make other people's problems more important than keeping their family safe. And that's not who Owen is. Yeah, maybe at times to a fault. We know where that kind of string kind of plays out with him. Yeah, I think there's so much. I love the spirit of follow Obi-Wan in some damn idealistic fool crusade. Really does connect to the Attack of the Clones energy more than anything, right? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where you're going with that. And I love that idea. And again, imagine I'm having fun, kind of like headcanon-y conversations. I don't want the humor to undercut the point here either. But yeah, Owen coming back. Here's the kid. Let me catch you up on some things. And Owen and Beru going, hey, so what's this empire we're hearing about? What's going on with that? Where's Anakin? And Owen Kenobi haven't explained any of that, and why I'm here, and why I'm not running around like a Jedi, and why I'm my Jedi robes really do mean I'm a farmer and other. And I'm just going to switch into this nice blue pant combo I got going over here. Just imagine. Yeah, you're right. And for Owen and Beru, don't want to cut Beru out of this occasion, but but Owen is the harder edged one on this issue, as we see in the famous New Hope conversation.
And Beru clearly knows a lot too. And they just have different ways of looking at it. I think that's a big Star Wars theme, right? Fear or hope. How are you going to look at the situation? Beru might have a little bit more hope. Owen, maybe rightfully, but has a little bit more fear.
Yeah, I don't ultimately agree with Owen because I think he is coming more from a place of fear than hope, but I also find it incredibly human and incredibly understandable. I mean, to put it in like short comic terms, I think Owen is the kind of guy who says like, don't do that, you're going to shoot your eye out.
Yeah.
And then Obi-Wan comes back with Luke. He's like, you shot your eye out, didn't you? I told you.
It's my dad's little thing. Does it hurt when you do that? Yeah, then don't do that. Stop doing it.
Exactly. Owen, everyone's grumpy paternal figure. Any other thoughts on that question before we take a break and talk about Owen Lars even more?
Yeah, no, I got to stop because I'm starting to bleed over into that wonderful discussion we're going to have here. So good to go.
Excellent. Great question, Tony. Thank you. This is so much fun, and I think we're going to get to dive into and learn really what Owen knows and what he feels and why. I think a lot more information and storytelling to pile into this great question. So thank you for that. We are going to be back in just a more minute here on Owens Center. And we are back to continue our discussion of all things Star Wars, but mostly Kenobi and Owen Lars right now. We'll be discussing some other things as well, but we're going to go to a question from one of our patrons on Patreon, Michael Cham. Michael says, do y'all think that Owen may have shot himself in the foot by being as tight-lipped as he was about Anakin, unintentionally mystifying him in Luke's eyes and making Luke much hungrier to know about his dad? How might things have been different had he just told him, your father was talented and could be very caring and kind, but he also hurt a lot of people and it destroyed him, and answered Luke's questions as best as he could without giving the game away? Now, this is just, I'm not a parent, but I'd say that's some great parenting advice there from Michael. Where do you go with this?
Look, I'm going to go real personal to start. You never really know. Every day, I grew up born in the 70s, raised in the 80s. So every day, my parents woke me up, sat me down, and said, just say no. Just say no. All right? Nancy's saying, we got to say this. You're going to say this. And you know what I've never done to this day, not counting alcohol? I've never done a drug in my life. Never. I went, okay, you got it. My sister, same house, down the hall, different room. By 7th grade, there was a lot of experimentation going on.
Right.
Yeah, you're not a parent. I'm not a parent. We'll call up Jennifer. She might balance this out, especially now that she's got 2 kids herself now. You just never really know. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Obviously, yeah, based on what we were saying before the break, I do think I'm going to take this question as Owen knows a lot. And I think everything Michael's saying here is I really like it. I think I would have loved a little bit more open and honest dialogue going on between them. It might have helped change Luke's perspective on the mysterious, spice freighter navigator that his father was. But again, I go to this idea of Owen's position, and you and I both agree. He ends up, I think he's too protective. He's too based in fear. But I think it's a righteous and earned protectiveness, depending on how much he does know, depending on just what's happened by the time we see him in New Hope in the last 19 years. It's a long time. We're only going to see a slice of it. Some of the comic flashbacks have taken to some of the dangers that aren't even about the Sith and the dark side. Just, the Tatooine itself is pretty dangerous. You got to keep Luke going strong in that. So I think there's a righteous protectiveness, a righteously earned protectiveness from Owen. But I do like this idea of going, hey, we need to let you know a little bit why you want to run off to be a warrior. Maybe could have been a little bit different.
Yeah. And I think it'd be great to see, any storytelling we get with Beru, either in the Kenobi series or even more in the publishing side of things, books or comics. I mean, Beru seems like this sort of loving, tender presence. I think, Luke has this just kind of, even though he stumbles and, is so much like his father, he's headstrong and almost leans into attachment as a fear and rushes forward and almost gives into anger, but he's got this core good heart. And I think he got just like a ton of love from Beru and in his own way from Owen. But to me, Owen seems like a character that was definitely crafted by a man George Lucas's age. That a long string of father figures, and even Owen being kind of molded out of this Western frontier vibe of you protect your families, you have just a ferocious heart to keep them safe, but the emotions are locked deep inside in a box. And this great measured, thoughtful, emotional dialogue that Michael has written here for Owen of your father was talented and could be very caring and kind, but he also hurt a lot of people and it destroyed him. Is like, I think Owen thinks those kind of things, but I think he's the kind of character who doesn't have those words,
Yeah.
That, nope, it's your father. He got himself hurt and he hurt a lot of people, and I want to keep you safe, and I'm going to push a little too far in the other direction. That safety means never doing anything,
Yeah.
And that kind of stoic parenting, particularly from stereotypes of what masculinity should be, that I think are still present, but were certainly even more present in older generations. Yeah. To me, Owen's just really a symbol of that. Of you spoke personally. I'll speak personally too. My dad is a natural artist, has this great big beating, caring heart, and I've watched him grow and grow and grow over the years because he wasn't taught this kind of language. He wasn't taught to think or speak like that. So he didn't know what to do with those feelings. As a kid, I knew he loved me and I felt it. And he'd say like, "I love you, kiddo." But he kind of like, I had like a weird kind of, just a normal kid questioning things a lot. I can't remember how old I was. Maybe like 10. And my dad told me he loved me. And I was just like, but why? It's not because you didn't get to know me. You didn't pick loving me. You have to. I was just born and I'm your son. So now you have to love me, right? And I'll never forget the look on his face. It was just like, I have no idea what the hell to do with that. But now after years and years of evolution and of looking at what did my dad looks at, what did my father teach me? What did he not say to me? What do I want to pass on to my kids? Yeah. Like he made a point of telling me that he loved me because his father didn't, but he's had to grow to be able to find the words in the language to express it with more nuance. And I think that's part of the reason this Owen story is so compelling. Yeah. That he clearly loves Luke. He's clearly fears for Luke. And I don't think he has the language to handle it very well.
That's well said. First of all, I love that story. I love that your great podcast questions started young and that you've just had great insight into the why of things. That's beautiful. I love that. Yeah, I think it's definitely there. I've thought of Owen in this way, but I've never thought of it specifically as, dare I say, greatest generation dad energy, early baby boomer dad energy, which you and I, our fathers are in. That makes a ton of sense for George and for what he's writing. And it's not just you can't go to the high school dance energy. It's something deeper and something even with New Hope, where George doesn't know all the little details of the stories, doesn't know there's a Kenobi series coming out on Disney Plus 45 years later. It does work of just like. I think what you're explaining, Joseph, so well, it really makes me understand my own justice for Owen kind of vibes I have on the show a lot, which is I think it's important to say he may have made some choices, again, based out of fear and made some mistakes at the end or all through the journey. But it's okay to learn from that. And it's okay to see, hey, I like this character. I like his intentions, but this was done wrong. And I think it's important to storytelling to be able to learn from these characters. And so I want more from Owen, and I want more of him struggling. And I'd love, again, we're not trying to erase Beru from this at all. We could do an entire episode on our thoughts on her, and maybe we should, but and we probably will as the show goes on. But her representing hope, different side, classical, softer energy versus classical, tougher energy. And you're right. And that's something that we still struggle. Something my father and I still struggle. We don't communicate well and what it's supposed to be. And Owen's doing what he thinks he's supposed to be at this time. And we'll see if there's anything else to it. Anyways, I probably went off the path there a little bit.
No, not at all.
Great question. Yeah.
And I think your story about you and your sister's different life experiences is so important, because I think that is an instinct that any sort of parent or mentor figure, parental figure can have, is just, hey, there's stuff in that room that's scary, so just don't go in there. And sometimes that works great, and people go, I won't go in that room. And other times people go, well, then I'm going in that room. If there's something that fascinating, you can't stop me. And I feel like I think that's what's interesting to me too, if you kind of compare these Owen thoughts to some of the debate about how did Kenobi handle the truth of who Luke's father is, right?
Yeah.
And I think Michael's presenting something that's perfectly balanced of he was wonderful, but he made some mistakes. And what can we learn from your father? So and how do you, what parts of your father's legacy do you want to embrace, Luke? Let's talk about it. It's all so great. But I feel like, the truth of Anakin is this scary room. And Owen's like, there's nothing in that room. It's not even interesting. Forget about that room. That room doesn't exist. And I think Kenobi knows I can't just shove him into that room. Yeah. So I'm going to open the door just a little. I'm going to tell him this truth that his father was all these wonderful things. I'm going to give him the part of Anakin that he can look up to and aspire to, and slowly begin this journey. And people still, I think have strong opinions and think Kenobi should have told him the full truth. But to me, that's what it's about. Anakin and Vader are a scary room that Luke has to go into sometime. And Owen's like, that door is sealed. Don't go in there. And Kenobi opens it a crack. And then Luke goes through and finds out everything for himself.
I got to tell you, I love that. I got to tell you, it's fun to have the discussions around Force Ghost sitting Kenobi and Return of the Jedi and to go, why didn't he give the whole thing? I love having those discussions. And again, damned if you do, damned if you don't. But what you're talking about, it's a fun example. The scary room, Kenobi saying, I know you got to go into that room. Let me just open it. And let's take our first steps into a larger journey is almost the middle ground of maybe what's going on here. Again, I'm not saying Beru is like, oh, and just tell him everything and we'll see what, I'm not saying that. We don't know the details of that, or if we're going to get the details of that conversation. Anyways, I just really love that. It's a great way to look at it, of Kenobi's purpose, as well as trying to, he's got this bit of a mandate and mission that he's trying to complete as well. And where does he find that balance?
Yeah, and how does he help Luke begin this journey? It will be fun to continue to debate, and very interested in the Owen content we're going to get. I mean, man, just the one sick Owen burn, like you taught his father, has set the internet alight. So I can't wait for the full Kenobi roast hosted by Owen Lars. Any other thoughts before we move on to our final question?
No, I do want to go to the back room, belly room of the Comedy Store and see that roast battle with Owen and Kenobi.
Like I taught his father. Whoa. Whoa. All right. Thank you, Michael, for such a great question, a great thought starter. Move on to our final question from Ben Potter. Ben says, let's talk montages. Do you guys prefer pre-battle or post-victory montages? What is your favorite? And are there other Star Wars montages I'm not thinking of? Ken, where do you go with this for your favorite montages?
Well, first of all, I didn't have time to watch every movie or show to get the montages done, and I didn't even Google it. Perhaps there's a good list or future Star Wars ranked in which we'll address this. But this is a great question, Ben. I love this because it is definitely part of it. And I got to say, my favorite one, maybe because it's so recent, Rise of Skywalker, the pre-battle montage it's almost my favorite because it's almost too self-aware. Like it's like we're going to do a montage. It's a South Park song right here. And it has a level of just delicious Star Wars silliness to it that would have just absolutely made my childhood, by the way. It would have been just like, oh, and then they're leaping over the A-Wing and their snap. I would have loved this as I was 7 or 8. So therefore, because of that, I think I love it with a bit of a wink and a nod now, where it's not like my favorite section of that movie, but it's just like, going to war and we're going to save the day and it needs this montage. Therefore, I kind of love that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one that came to my mind of two favorites is that pre-battle. I think you're right. It is almost shot like it is a, promo video for joining the resistance.
Yeah.
But I think that's a part of what forms different opinions about Rise of Skywalker. I think it wears its heart on its sleeve, which is what you're talking about. And that works for some people and it totally doesn't for others in terms of a kind of storytelling. That scene in the specific line of everybody getting ready to fight over, Poe and Finn's speech, but in particular the line, what our fathers fought for, we will not let die. that chokes me up almost every time. The sequel trilogy has been about legacy, and are you haunted like Kylo by the past and want to push it all away, or Rey, who feels like she can't move forward unless she fully understands her own past? Or are there wonderful things that were done and that legacy should be, kept alive? And that, I think, is kind of what that is about. And by the time that is ending, and the Tantive 4 is ascending, it's fist pumping to me. So I really love that. And then the post battle Endor is hard to beat. Both the original of just the drumming on the helmets. Wedge gets acknowledged by multiple main characters. Ori Marco dancing in the background. And I include in that the special edition. I really, really love the scene that this is a victory felt across the entire galaxy. So, I mean, Rise of Skywalker one is great too, but for me, the Endor one is a little bit closer to my heart because I lived with it for so long.
Yeah, that's a great answer there. I've grown to appreciate the Phantom Menace one more and more because it used to be a making fun of point of the peace orb, and this and that, and I just love the music. I mean, the Star Wars ranked intro song that Tony Thaxton put together, clearly, obviously inspired by that, and then the outro music is inspired by Ewoks and March and Celebrating. So your answer, I really love that one too, and yeah, it's just fun. It's a great question, Ben, because it got me really thinking of all the little montages there.
Yeah, and we will definitely have to do a deeper dive on montages. I think the other big one that is not pre-battle or post-battle is mid-tragedy, and that's Order 66. I think that's that is, I would say, the most brutal montage in all of Star Wars of which Jedi died on which planet and how.
Yeah, I had Revenge of the Sith playing in the living room on Sunday, and it was. You know the movie so much, so you come in and out and you're doing chores, you're doing errands, whatever. So I was making a little dinner, making some good vegan corn dogs, by the way. They tasted so good. I was so happy. And then my point being, I was in a good mood. And then I heard Commander Cody, now's the execute Order 66. And I was like, I have to watch this. And it's like, what is it hurt so good? It just hurts so good.
It does. And the more that the individual characters are explored, the more the individual planets, like Plo Koon going down over Cato Nemodia, like it has even more punch after the Brotherhood novel spent so much time on that planet,
Yeah. It's good stuff.
So that's a powerful montage.
It is. And the final note I'll say, the Resistance theme is a perfect Star Wars pre-battle montage score. That like you get, you're excited.
Yeah, no, I mean that I should cue that up for when I'm trying to exercise.
Well, I got to tell you, my friend, you and I are carpooling down, and that's all only CDs I have in my car, because I have a car from 2002, is the sequel trilogy soundtrack. So we're going to crank up that Resistance theme.
Yeah, and we can pretend we're buzzing the lake on Takodana. That'll be great. Well, those are our questions. Thank you to Ben and Michael and Tony and Paul. All really great, really fun questions. Can't wait to get into probably a new era of questions as Kenobi rolls out. We've got a bunch more still great questions on both Twitter and Patreon coming up. But if you would like to submit a question, if you're a patron, you can go under our posts and you'll see that there is an individual post asking for questions. So feel free to add them there. And if you'd like to ask us a question on Twitter, it is our pinned tweet on @ForceCenterPod. Go ahead, dive in and ask us a question. Ken, that is it for the questions.
That is it. We want to remind you, if you're going to Star Wars Celebration, we can't wait to see you. We'll give you some fist bumps, some elbow bumps. We're going to be safe, but we're going to have a lot of fun celebrating with all of you there. You can see us on Thursday, 2 p.m., the podcast stage. We'll be guests, Joseph and I, on the Star Wars Explained podcast with Alex and Molly Damon. Going to be a lot of fun discussing a bunch of favorite things there, news drops, favorite background characters, things like that. Going to be great. And then we are going to ask you to follow us on social media or just pay attention. We'll update you. We're looking Saturday about 4 o'clock somewhere on the convention floor on the campus there, doing a ForceCenter meetup for a little bit. We'll update you. We just kind of want to get our feet on the ground and see what will work best. But Saturday, 4 p.m. if you're going there. So to get that updated information, make sure you follow us on Twitter at ForceCenter Pod. We're on Instagram and YouTube as well. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. We're available on a lot of different spots, including Acast, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and more. You can get merch at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter, and you can support us directly if you so choose at patreon.com/ForceCenter. You can follow me at Ken Napzok or go to my website, kennapzok.com, for more information. Got a big comedy show coming up on June 4th after Celebration at the Troubadour. Ticket information on the website. Joseph, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is at Joseph Scrimshaw. I'm going to try to be posting a few more not unboxing videos of my Star Wars action figures. I'm sure I'm going to be going action figure crazy during Celebration. We'll see how the hotel Wi-Fi holds up for that. So check me out there if you'd like to. And you can find links to all my other adventures on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. And like Ken said, I'm really looking forward to seeing fans at the convention. Hope everyone has a wonderful time, and we will see you at Celebration, right?
Absolutely.
All right, that is it then. The questions of the Force have been answered for now.